In this video, we're going to be going over 25 hard SAT problems. If you're subscribed to the channel, then you know already that the SAT has 3 levels of difficulty for each question. They have easy, medium, and hard questions. In this video, we're going to be going over only hard questions. If you haven't already, please make sure to watch my video on 100 SAT problems. This video is a very comprehensive video that goes over a ton of different topics and is a prerequisite or precursor to this video. With that being said, we will get started now. So for number 1, we have the peregrine falcon can reach speeds of up to 200 miles per hour while diving to catch prey, making it the fastest animal on the planet when in a dive. What is the peregrine falcon's maximum speed when diving to catch prey in feet per second? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. So for this question, what we need to do is change our 200 miles per hour into feet per second. So we need to cancel out each of these terms or units of measure and turn them into these other units of measure. First, we can cancel out hours. We know that 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. And here when we multiply 200 by 1, we'll get 200 miles. And then we can divide this by 3,600 seconds. Now we have our miles per second, and we need to transition from miles to feet. The way that we do that is we're going to write 1 mile in the bottom, and this corresponds to 5,280 feet. And we'll have 200 times 5,280 divided by 3,600 feet per second. So let's see what we get. 200 times 5,280 divided by 3,600 comes out to be 293.3, and it says round your answer to the nearest whole number, which would just be 293 feet per second. For number 2, we're starting off with a similar example. The first part is from the same context. If a peregrine falcon dove at its maximum speed for half a mile to catch prey, how many seconds would the dive take? So we found that the falcon is diving at 293 feet per second. And we want to know after how many seconds does the falcon dive half a mile. So half a mile is the 5,280 divided by 2, which would be 2,640 feet in total. And then to find how many seconds it'll take, we need to divide the total number of feet, 2,640, by the speed, the feet per second, which is 293. 2,640 divided by 293 is approximately 9 seconds. And this is how long it would take for the falcon to dive for half a mile, given that it's reached its maximum speed. In the xy plane, a line that has the equation y equals c for some constant c intersects a parabola at exactly one point. If the parabola has the equation y equals negative x squared plus 5x, what is the value of c? What we need to do here in order to find where these two lines intersect, we need to set the two equations equal to each other. So since we know that c equals y and y equals negative x squared plus 5x, we can remove the y from the middle and say that c equals negative x squared plus 5x. If we move the two terms on the right over to the left, we'll end up with x squared minus 5x plus c equals 0. Now the next important part of the question is that they're asking for exactly 1 point. So when we create the quadratic equation, the part that determines how many solutions we're going to have is the discriminant, or b squared minus 4 times a times c. If we plug in the values, b is negative 5, and then minus 4 times a times c. And in order for this quadratic to have exactly one solution, the discriminant must equal 0. Here, negative 5 squared is 25. Then minus 4 times 1 times c is 4c, which equals 0. To get c by itself, we're going to subtract 25 on each side, and we'll get that 4c equals negative 25. And then finally, to get c by itself, we divide each side by negative 4. And we'll find that c equals 25 over 4. Number 4, the relationship between x and y can be written as y equals mx, where m is a constant. If y equals 17 when x equals a, what is the value of y when x equals 2a? So with this first set of equations, we're going to figure out what m is. They say when y is 17, and then we'll say m instead of x, x is a. To get m by itself, we divide by a on both sides. And we find that m equals 17 over a. Now instead of y equals mx, we now have y equals what m is equal to, 17 over a times x. And then they're asking what is y? What is y when x equals 2a? So we're going to have y equals 17 over a times 2a. The a on top and the a on the bottom cancel, and we're left with 17 times 2, which is 34. This is going to be our answer here. For number 5, we have in quadrilateral ABCD, both lines AD are parallel to BC, and CD equals half of AD. If we draw a line straight down from B, and we call this X, we know that this line is going to be the same. They tell us in the question that AB is twice as much as CD. So if we call this line X, we can call this line 2x. They want to know what the full angle measure of B is. If we have x and the hypotenuse is 2x, then we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. The angle opposite to x is going to be 30 degrees. The angle opposite to 2x is 90 degrees. And this last side, we don't need to know it, but it's square root of 3 times x, which is opposite to 60 degrees. So we know that this A is 30 degrees via this triangle, this 30, 60, 90 triangle. So now I'm going to erase a few things. So now that we know that A is 30, we can look at the total angle measure of the entire quadrilateral. We know that all the angles have to add up to make 360. We have 90 and 90, which would be 180, plus 30, which is angle A, plus angle B. And when we add up all these angles together, it should equal 360. 180 plus 30 is 210, plus B is going to be 360. And to get B by itself, we subtract 210 on each side. And we're going to find that B equals 150 degrees. Or answer choice A. Number 6, H equals 1.88 L plus 32.01. The formula above can be used to approximate the height H in inches of an adult male based on the length L in inches of his femur. What is the meaning of 1.88 in this context? So whenever we have the number in front of a variable, it's usually the rate of change given something else. So if we have 1.88 in front of L, every time L increases by 1, our height is going to increase by this rate of change, which is 1.88. So A says the approximate femur length in inches for a man with a height of 32.01 inches. That's not it. If they had no femur, if the length of their femur was 0, then they would have a height of 32.01. B, the approximate increase of a man's femur length in inches for each increase of 32.01 inches in his height. That's not it either. The length of the femur is not what's increasing, it's the man's height that's increasing. The approximate increase of a man's femur length in inches for each 1 inch increase in height. No, it would be the other way. Whenever the length of the femur increases by 1 inch, then the height increases by 1.88. D, the approximate increase of a man's height in inches for each 1 inch increase in his femur length. And that's going to be the answer. Every time the length of his femur increases 1 inch, his height will increase 1.88 inches. Number 7, in triangle ABC, the length of angle B is 90 degrees. So we'll draw this. A, B, C. B is 90 degrees. BC is 16. AC is 20. Triangle DEF is similar to triangle ABC, where vertices D, E, and F correspond to vertices A, B, and C, respectively. And each side of the triangle DEF is 1/3 of the length of corresponding sides of triangle ABC. What is the sign of F? So since the triangles DEF and ABC are similar, the trig functions, or the relationship between the angles, will also be the same. So if they're asking for sine of F, this is going to be equal to sine of whatever angle's in the same spot. F is last, and C is last. So this is going to be the same as sine of C. We know that sine of an angle is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. This triangle is a 3, 4, 5 triangle that was scaled by a factor of 4. Scaled by a factor of 4. So 3 times 4 would be 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 4 is 20. So if we're looking at angle C, the opposite side is going to be 12, and the hypotenuse is 20. So we'll have that sine of C is 12 over 20, or 3 over 5. We could have used Pythagorean theorem to figure out the length of A to B, but a shortcut is knowing the Pythagorean triples and understanding that In this case, they're just multiplied by a factor of 4. Number 8, C equals 5 over 9 times F minus 32. The equation above shows how a temperature F measured in degrees Fahrenheit relates to the temperature C measured in degrees Celsius. Based on the equation, which of the following must be true? The temperature increase 1 degree Fahrenheit is equivalent to a temperature increase of 5 over 9 degrees Celsius. So we can test this. Let's test F equals 32 versus F equals 33. If we plug in 32 for the equation of Celsius, 5 over 9, instead of F, I'm going to plug in what F equals, 32 minus 32. 32 minus 32 is 0, and then 0 times 5 over 9 is 0. Now let's try the next F, which is 33. This will be 33 minus 32. 33 minus 32 is 1, and then 1 times 5 over 9 is just 5 over 9. So as we can see, when Fahrenheit increases by 1, Celsius increases by 5 over 9. So this first choice is true. And we know that it cannot be B or C. So now the question is 2 correct or no? A temperature increase of 1 degree Celsius is equivalent to a temperature increase of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. If we try to solve for F, the first step would be to multiply by the reciprocal. We would get 9 over 5C equals F minus 32. And then to get F by itself, we add 32 on each side. And that equals F. 9 over 5 is the same as 1.8. And whenever we increase the Celsius by 1 degree, that results in Fahrenheit being increased by 1.8. So 2 is also true, and therefore the answer is going to be D. Number 9, the equation 24x squared plus 25x minus 47 divided by ax minus 2 equals negative 8x minus 3 minus 53 over ax minus 2 is true for all values of x not equal to 2 over a, where a is a constant. What is the value of a? What we need to do with this fraction, I'm first going to rewrite it. 24x squared plus 25x minus 47 over ax minus 2 equals negative 8x minus 3 minus 53 over ax minus 2. The first step here is to get rid of the denominator or the fractions by multiplying by the denominator. When we multiply ax minus 2 by this first fraction, the denominator cancels with what we're multiplying by, and we'll just have 24x squared plus 25x minus 47. When we multiply ax minus 2 by negative 8x, we're going to get negative 8x times ax minus 2. The same goes with minus 3. Minus 3 times ax minus 2. And then finally, when we multiply by this third fraction, both the denominator and what we're multiplying by are going to cancel, and we just have minus 53. The left side is going to stay the same. On the right side, we can distribute. Negative 8x plus ax times ax is negative 8ax squared. Negative 8x times negative 2 is plus 16x. Then minus 3ax plus 6 minus 53. Now what we need to do is look at the coefficients of the matching terms. So here we have x squared, the coefficient is 24. When we look on the right side, the coefficient of x squared is going to be negative 8a. Since the left side and the right side are equal, we can set the coefficients equal to each other. And in order to get a by itself, what we need to do is divide each side by negative 8. and we'll find that A equals -3. Number 10, what are the solutions to 3x squared plus 12x plus 6 equals 0? The first thing that we're going to do is factor a 3 out. We'll be left with x squared plus 4x plus 2, which equals 0. We can divide each side by 3, and we'll get x squared plus 4x plus 2 equals 0 divided by 3 is 0. And then since we cannot factor this out, what we're going to do is plug in to the quadratic formula. For the quadratic formula, we have x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. We know that a equals 1, b equals 4, and c equals 2. So now we're going to plug them in. Negative b is going to be -4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 2, all over 2 times 1. On top we have -4 plus or minus the square root. 4 squared is 16. And we're going to have 16 minus 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8. 16 minus 8 is going to be 8 over 2. We are going to have -4 plus or minus. The square root of 8 is the square root of 4 times 2 over 2. And since we have the square root of 4 here, we can bring that on the outside as the square root of 4, which will give us 4 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2 over 2. And now the last step is to simplify everywhere. We can divide every term by 2. This -4 becomes -2 plus or minus. This 2 on the outside turns into a 1. So just square root of 2, and then it would be divided by 1. So just -2 plus or minus the square root of 2, which will be answer choice A. For number 11, we have that the table above shows the number of international tourist arrivals round to the nearest tenth of a million to the top 9 tourist destinations in both 2012 and 2013. Based on the information given in the table, how much greater in millions was the median number of international tourist arrivals to the top 9 tourist destinations in 2013 to the median number in 2012 to the nearest tenth of a million? So what we have to do is find what the median is. So for 2012, so we're writing them from least to greatest for each of them. So in total there's 9, so we need to find the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be Italy. This is the city or country that we need to focus on for international tourist arrivals. Now the question is asking, how much greater in millions was the median number? Here we're comparing the median number of 46.4 to 47.7. That's a difference of 1.3. Since this is in millions, the total would be 1.3 million. For number 12, we have the same context as for number 11. The question asked the number of international tourist arrivals in Russia in 2012 was 13.5% greater than in 2011. The number of international tourist arrivals in Russia was K million more in 2012 than in 2011. what is the value of k to the nearest integer? So they tell us here that the number in 2012 was 13.5% greater than in 2011. So that means that when we multiply 1.135, which is a 13.5% increase, by x, which is the number in 2011, we're going to equal the number in 2012 for Russia, which is 24.7. In order to get x by itself, we have to divide each side by 1.135. And when we plug this into a calculator, we'll find that x equals 24.7 divided by 1.135 is 21.76. And they want to know k to the nearest integer. So what they want to know is the number of tourists were k million more in 2012 than in 2011. So we need to subtract the 2012 number by the 2011 number. And when we subtract 24.7 by 21.76, we get 2.94, and they want it to the nearest integer. So this would be approximately 3, which would mean 3 million. Number 13. Gisela would owe $15,500 in taxes each year if she were not eligible for any tax deductions. This year, Gisela is eligible for tax deductions that reduce the amount of taxes she owes by $2,325. If these tax deductions reduce the taxes Gisela owes this year by D%, what is the value of D? So in order to find the percentage that it's decreased, we need to find the number of decrease. How much does it decrease by? And we're going to divide this by the total that she owes in taxes. The value of the decrease is $2,325, and we're going to divide this by the total amount that she owes in taxes, which is $15,500. So when we divide these two values, 2,325 divided by 15,500 will give us 0.15 or 15%. Number 14. 3 over 4x minus 1 over 2y equals 12, and ax minus by equals 9. The system of equations above has no solution. If a and b are constants, what is the value of a over b? So what it means for a system of equations to have no solution, it means that the two lines are parallel, but they don't have the same y-intercept. If we notice here on the right side, the two numbers are different, so the y-intercept aspect of it, we don't have to worry about. What we need to do is make sure that they have the same slope. So they're looking for a over b, and this needs to be equal to the coefficient for x, which is 3 over 4, and the coefficient for y, which is 1 over 2. When we have two fractions dividing by each other, like we do here, we need to keep the first fraction the same. We change the division to multiplication, and we flip the last fraction. So we get that 3 over 4 times 2 over 1 equals a over b. When we're multiplying fractions together, we multiply the two numerators together, which would be 6, and then we multiply the two denominators together, which would be 4. And we can simplify 6 over 4 to be 3 over 2, which is going to be our answer. Number 15. The scatter plot above shows a company's ice cream sales D in dollars and the high temperature T in degrees Celsius on 12 different days. The line of best fit for the data shown is also shown. Which of the following could be an equation of the line of best fit? So if we measure how much it's increasing from approximately this point to approximately that point, our change in x is plus 2, and our change in y is close to 100. So we know that our slope has to be approximately 100 over 2, or relatively close to 50. So if we look at the possible answer choices and the slopes, it can't be A, the slope is not 0.03. The slope for B is 10, it's not 10. It's either going to be C or D. Next, we can continue to extend the line. And if we continue, we'll find that the x-intercept, or the y-intercept, the value where the temperature is 0, would not be 300. We would get to 300 right here, which will only be 1 or 2 degrees less. So the y-intercept has to be 84, and the answer is going to be D. Number 16. When a patient receives a penicillin injection, the kidneys begin removing the penicillin from the body. The table and graph above show the penicillin concentration in a patient's bloodstream at 5-minute intervals for the 20 minutes immediately following a one-time penicillin injection. According to the table, how many more micrograms of penicillin are present in 10 milliliters of blood drawn from a patient 5 minutes after the injection than are present in 8 milliliters of blood drawn 10 minutes after the injection? So we need to multiply 10 milliliters by the penicillin concentration after 5 minutes, which will be 152. And we're going to compare this, how many more, we want to know the difference, than the amount present in 8 milliliters, so 8 times blood drawn 10 minutes after the injection. So we're going to go to 10 minutes after the injection, which is 118. 10 times 152 is 1,520. And then 8 times 118 is going to be 944. And when we subtract these two, we get 576. This is how many more micrograms of penicillin are present in 10 milliliters 5 minutes after injection than in 8 milliliters 10 minutes after injection. Number 17. The penicillin concentration in micrograms per milliliter in the patient's bloodstream t minutes after the penicillin injection is modeled by the function p, defined by p of t equals 200 times b to the power of t over 5. If p approximates the value in the table to within 10 micrograms per milliliter, what is the value of b rounded to the nearest tenth? So what we need to do is plug in one of these coordinates. We're going to use the second. Minutes after injection is our t, and then penicillin concentration is our capital P. We're going to plug in these values into the equation that they provided. Pt equals 200b, and then t over 5. The reason why we're choosing this second row is because when we have 5, this 5 over 5 is going to turn into 1. And then all we need to do to solve for b is divide by 200. So if we plug in the values, we know p of t is 152. This is going to equal 200 times b to the power of t equals 5 over 5. This is going to end up being 152 equals 200 times b. 5 over 5 is 1, which will just make it b. Here, to get b by itself, we're going to divide each side by 200. On the right side, they cancel, and then we get b equals 152 over 200. We can simplify this. It'll become 76 over 100, which turns into 0.76. The question asks to round b to the nearest tenth, so we'll find that b equals 0.8. Number 18. In the triangle RST above, point W lies on line RT. What is the value of cosine of RSW minus sine of WST? So it doesn't matter where we put W, we just know W is somewhere on this line. And the fact that it doesn't matter actually makes it a little bit easier for us to understand. Whenever we have two adjacent angles in a right triangle, and we're finding the cosine of one, sine of the other, those two will always be equal. So we find that cosine of RSW equals sine of WST. And since they're equal, when we subtract them from each other, all we get is 0, which is going to be the answer. Most of the time, whenever you're given a trig problem like this, you find that the cosine of the angle and the sine of the angle typically are the same. So now that we have one minus another, if they're the same and we subtract them, we just end up with 0. Another form of this question would simply tell you what cosine of RSW is, and then they might ask for what sine of WST is. So if they say cosine of RSW was 3 over 5, we would just plug in that same answer. Question 19. The complete graph of the function f and the table of values for the function g are shown above. The maximum value of f is k. What is the value of g of k? So they say the maximum value of f is k. Whenever they use the word value, this is referring to the y component. So the maximum y component, what is the highest point on the graph? So the highest point is right here, and the y component is going to be 3. So we find that k equals 3. They're not asking for what k is, they're asking for what g of k is. G of k, we know k is 3, so this is going to be g of 3. And if we look at the table, when x is 3, g of 3 will be 6. And we find that the answer of g of k is 6. Number 20. A photocopy machine is initially loaded with 5,000 sheets of paper. The machine starts a large job and copies at a constant rate. After 20 minutes, it has used 30% of the paper. Which of the following equations models the number of sheets of paper, P, remaining in the machine m minutes after the machine has started printing? So we know that we start off with 5,000 sheets of paper, and then this value or this principal amount is changing by 30%. It's decreasing. So we're starting off with 100%, and we're subtracting 30% in 20-minute intervals. So it's going to be the number of minutes divided by 20. If we plug in 20 minutes for m, then this will occur only one time. So we can simplify the inside of the parentheses. 100% minus 30% is 70%. And that's going to be raised to the power of m over 20. And this is correlated to answer choice D. They just have 70% written as a decimal. Number 21. A startup company has opened with 8 employees. The company's growth plan assumes that two new employees will be hired each quarter every 3 months for the next 5 years. If an equation is written in the form y equals ax plus b to represent the number of employees y employed by the company x quarters after the company opened, what is the value of b? So whenever we have something in the form of y equals mx plus b, or slope-intercept form, our b is always our starting point or initial amount. If y represents the number of employees after x quarters, then b will be how many employees we started with. And as we can see from the first sentence, the company opened with 8 employees. So that means that b will be equal to 8. Number 22. The same 20 contestants on each of 3 days answered 5 questions in order to win a prize. Each contestant received 1 point for each correct answer. The number of contestants received a given score on each day is shown in the table above. What was the mean score of the contestants on day 1? So in order to find the mean score, we need to add up the total number of scores, or the total score, and then divide by however many people there were. So we have that 2 people scored 5 out of 5. So we're going to multiply 2 by 5, plus 3 people scored 4, 3 times 4, plus 4 people scored 3, plus 6 people scored 2, and then 2 people scored 1, and 3 people scored 0. We know that those will add up to 0, or multiply to 0. And then we're going to divide this by the number of contestants, which we know is 20. On top, 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 6 times 2 is 12. And 2 times 1 is 2. Divided by 20. 10 plus 12 is 22. Plus 12 is 34. Plus 12 is 46. Plus 2 is 48 over 20. And this is going to be approximately 48 divided by 20, 2.4. No contestant received the same score of on 2 different days. If a contestant is selected at random, what is the probability that the selected contestant received a score of 5 on day 2 or day 3, given that the contestant received a score of 5 on one of the 3 days? So they're asking what is the probability if somebody is selected at random that they scored a 5 on day 2 or 3, given that the contestant received a score of 5 on one of the 3 days. So given that they scored a 5, so we're going to look at the total number for people who got a 5. So it's going to be out of 7 because there was a total of 7 people. And then we need to add day 2 and day 3 because that's what we're asking the probability of. On day 2 or day 3, if we add them together, we get 5 out of 7, which is our answer. The bottom is the total of, since they said given that the contestant received a score of 5, we got the total from those who scored a 5 out of 5. and then they're asking for the probability that the contestant came from day 2 or day 3. We're going to add the number of day 2s and day 3s, which gets us 5. And this is going to be our answer. For number 24, we have in the figure above, tan B equals 3 over 4. If BC equals 15 and DA equals 4, what is the length of DE? So they tell us that tan B is 3 over 4. That means that the opposite over adjacent, remember tangent is opposite over adjacent, have a factor of 3 over 4 to each other. And then it says B of C equals 15, so all of this is 15. And DA, this part, is 4. What is the length of DE? So since we know that tan B is 3 over 4, it seems like this is a Pythagorean triple, which is 3, 4, 5. And the entire triangle will have a factor of 3, 4, 5. The opposite will be a factor of 3. The adjacent will be a factor of 4. And the hypotenuse would be a factor of 5. So if we think about what the factor is, this should be 5, but it's 15. That means that we had 5 times 3. And we're multiplying the length of each side by 3. The side opposite to B should have a factor of 3. But remember, we're multiplying it by 3. So the length of AC is 9. And then the length of BA is going to be 4 times 3, which is 12. So we have this triangle as 12, 9, and 15. They're telling us that this part right here is 4. So this can help us identify what portion of the entire triangle is just the bottom part. So we're going to use 4. We're going to set up a proportion now. So we can say 9 over y equals 16, which is the entire thing, over 12. If we cross multiply, we'll get 9 times 12 is 108, equal to 16 times y, which is 16y. And then we can divide each side by 16. So 108 divided by 16, we're going to get that y equals 6.75, which is going to be our answer. Okay, now for number 25. We have y equals x squared minus 4x plus 4, and y equals 4 minus x. If the ordered pair xy satisfies the system of equations above, what is one possible value of x? What we need to do is set the two equations equal to each other, since they both have just a y in front. We're going to have x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 4 minus x. We're going to move this 4 and x over to the other side by adding x and subtracting 4. On the right side, we're going to get 0. On the left side, we're going to get x squared. Negative 4x plus x is negative 3x. And then positive 4 minus 4 also gets canceled. So we have that x squared minus 3x equals 0. We can factor an x out, and we'll get x minus 3 equals 0. And we'll find that x equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. So x equals 0 and x equals 3. And these are the two possible answers that we can get for number 25. If you enjoyed watching this video and learned something new, please make sure to smash the like button below and subscribe to the channel for a higher SAT score. make sure that you watch my video on 100 SAT problems because we go through a bunch of different topics in that video and we go a little bit broader in terms of what we cover. I'll see you in the next video.